Welcome to my channel. I'm Zhan Xu. Let's talk about problem 48 at chapter 3. In this one, this is still the projectile motion. We can work on it together. They tell us exactly 3 seconds later, so we take the time t there. And we find the velocity in two components, right? So the x component is 8.3 meter per second. Y component is 4.8 meter per second. And then ask you to determine the horizontal range, the maximum height, or the speed and angle before it hits the ground there. So for these problems, we can see for the projectile motion, it tells us a certain time, 3 seconds later, we know the velocity at x and the y component. So it looks like we must know the initial velocity at x and the y component to solve all the rest problems. And for the projectile motion, we know acceleration due to gravity pointing down, so there we must keep negative side. And then we can consider for the projectile motion, the x component, the velocity is constant, right? So this one must equal to this one, initial velocity. Vox equal to Vx. Do you agree? Yes. And then we look at the y component. You can see in this one, we know the final velocity. Vy, we know time t, and we know acceleration. Can you find the initial velocity at the y component? Yes. So this one is so easy. We can solve the equation and find the initial velocity at the y component. It's just 34.2 meter. 34.2 meter. You solve it, right? Because this one, we can use this equation. Final velocity equals initial velocity plus acceleration times t. So this one, then you can down. And then this one is 8.6 meter per second. The next one asks you to find the horizontal range. See, now you can see, you know the velocity at the x component, you know time t. Can you find the displacement at the x component? Yes, Vox times t, right? So easy. The next one is the maximum height. So at the maximum height, so that means at the peak. So for the peak, we know the velocity in the y component is 0. Agree? Yes, and we know the initial velocity at the y component. We know acceleration, and we know time t. Can you get it? Can you get the position at the y component? Sure. So we can consider this equation. In this one, you can see, you know the initial velocity at the y component we get, right? Voy, and you know acceleration negative g, and you know the velocity at the peak 0, and then the initial position is 0. So then you can solve this y max. Solve this y max, and then you solve it, you get it 16 meter. 16 meter. The next one asks you to find its speed angle of projectile motion when it strikes the ground. So for this one, we can see the projectile motion start from the ground and then hit the ground. And as we talked before, this is just the initial. Let me choose another color. Okay. Initial. Oh, sorry. It must be this way, right? Velocity. And the final is this way. And these two velocity is symmetry. So Vox is a constant and Voy just at the opposite direction. So Voy just at the opposite direction. You can see this is just 8.6 negative 34.2 and j component, and then the magnitude of the velocity will not change. It's just I component square plus j component squared. So this one, the final velocity, magnitude of the final velocity equals very beginning, the initial velocity magnitude. So this one we get. And the angle theta is the same thing, right? Because we can, if we draw a picture, you can see one is this way, one is this way. It's just a symmetry. So this angle theta equal to this angle theta. So in this one, you can get a Vy divided by Vx and take arctangent. That's all. Thank you.